Far Cry for Help, the dichotomy. This game was way too hard to summarize and I needed to do 2 playthroughs to get almost identical footage for slightly different missions. Seriously, the dual choice thing only seems to be there to make my job harder, but hey, they put it in, so let's launch into a convoluted mess of a video about Far Cry that's probably going to be about as long as actually playing the game. I should also mention that the order in which I narrate things isn't going to be the only way to play through the game, as different parts can be done in different times completely independently of each other. In fact, I'm pretty sure that it's impossible to play through the game in exactly the same way that I explain it, so with that in mind, let's get going. The game begins with the last words of Ishwari Gale telling her son AJ, the protagonist Gale, to take her remains to Lakshmana. Armed with only this unbelievably cryptic piece of information, you are immediately transported into AJ, who is on a bus heading through Kirat, the country where Lakshmana is located. From this point on, it's just easier for me to refer to AJ as you, because he doesn't really have a personality of his own anyway, and writing is hard. A local man called Darpan, who seems to know you, says that he will do the talking as the bus draws closer to a checkpoint surrounded by armed guards, but things go horribly wrong very quickly, and most of the people who were on the bus get shot. Luckily, the king of Kirat, a very fashionable man named Pagan Min, arrives in a helicopter before you or Darpan can be killed and stabs the shit out of the head guard, saying that he only wanted the bus to be stopped. Pagan takes a quick selfie with you and then takes you to have dinner along with Darpan. At Pagan's dinner table, everything seems to be going well, and Pagan reveals that he knew Ishwari, but then Darpan tries to text a freedom fighter group called the Golden Path for help, and Pagan stabs him too. Pagan doesn't kill Darpan and sends him to be questioned about the Golden Path by his extremely white associate Paul de Pleur Harmon. Pagan tells you to wait at the table and walks out of the room with Darpan's phone, and at this point the game can go 2 ways. The easiest thing to do now is to just stay put, so after you do absolutely nothing for 13 minutes and 40 seconds, all while listening to Darpan getting tortured, Pagan comes back and you place the ashes of Ishwari next to the ashes of Lakshmana, who was the daughter of Ishwari and Pagan and was killed by your father, Mohan Gale. That makes you and Lakshmana step-siblings in case you weren't following. After this, you and Pagan fly off in a helicopter and the game ends. Then you re-evaluate how you view murderous strangers in stupid outfits, because apparently they remove all gameplay from a game. If you do things properly and investigate the sounds of Darpan screaming, you run into Sabal, one of the leaders of the Golden Path. Sabal says that he knew your father, so you decide to follow him as he tries to rescue you from Pagan. This sounds weird when you know what happens in the secret ending, but given that Darpan is still being tortured during this cutscene, there does seem to be a sense of foreboding about Pagan and his friends, and leaving does feel like a good idea. Once outside, all hell breaks loose and everything gets quite confusing, but after a quick chase, crash and stealth tutorial, you manage to regroup with Sabal and the Golden Path before being avalanched into oblivion. Sabal then rescues you for the second time in 10 minutes and takes you to the headquarters of the Golden Path, where you meet Amita, who is the other leader of the Golden Path and who acts like she hates you, and Badra, a girl she's looking after. Sabal tells you that Lakshmana is probably in the north, so it'll be hard to get there, and then lets you take a look around the village. If your mind works in the same way mine does, the first thing you'll do is do a mission for Amita to prove that you aren't worthless, and that Darpan's sacrifice to get you to the Golden Path was a worthwhile one. She gets you to kill some wolves for an old farmer, which doesn't seem worth your time, but afterwards Amita reveals that Badra is supposedly the next Tarun Matara, which is the personification of a god on earth if you believe in such things. Amita doesn't like that Sabal is making Badra fulfill this duty, and you see that the two of them have different views on where Kirat should be heading, with Amita valuing progression and Sabal valuing tradition. Speaking of Sabal, back in the village he is attending to a man who fell off of a radio tower trying to hack into it, so that it broadcasts Golden Path propaganda rather than Pagan's propaganda. You volunteer to finish the job and successfully reveal the first part of the map. This action also pleases a weapons dealer called Longinus, who supplies the Golden Path with guns, even though he's a devout Christian. He also has his own subplot where you collect blood diamonds for him that are a reminder of his time as a warlord, and then he leaves the country. That comes later, but I'm saying it now because he is never involved in the real plot again. Longinus gives you a gun and says that every radio tower you hack will earn you a new gun. Then Pagan's army invades the Golden Path's village, and you put your new toy to good use, saving Badra somewhere in the chaos. Amita wants everyone to help rebuild the outpost, but Sabal sends you to save some hostages instead. After rescuing the hostages, you also decide to capture a nearby outpost that is controlled by Pagan. This means that Amita finally acknowledges that you could be useful, even though you haven't listened to any of her commands so far. She also mentions that your parents founded the Golden Path, so might as well stay in Kirat. After this comes the first binary choice of the game, between Amita and Sabal, and honestly this one really confuses me. You can either choose Amita and let a camp get attacked so you can get intel on another bigger attack, or choose Sabal and protect the smaller camp and have no intel on the larger attack. This sounds like it makes sense at first, but then you discover that whichever one you choose, after you've completed the mission, Sabal sends you to a temple to learn about Kirati religion, and then the temple turns out to be where the larger attack is planned. The only difference the choice makes is that Sabal's mood changes, and you may or may not see a goat get sacrificed. Either way, you protect the temple. At some point in that, Badra also mentions that your father was murdered, so mull that one over for a while, see if you can find the relevance. Taking some time away from the Golden Path, you head to the Gale homestead, where you discover two druggies named Reggie and Yogi. They also have their own subplot where they test out new kinds of drugs on you, but they only serve the main plot twice. At this point in the plot, they tranquilize you, and you wake up naked in a combat arena, where Nor, another one of Pagan's associates, says that you need to survive for both of your sakes. One bloodbath later, she tells you that Depleur has her family, and that she is essentially a hostage being forced to run the arena. Rather than act on this right away, you decide the best course of action would be to settle another dispute between Amita and Sabal, this time over a large quantity of opium that Sabal wants to destroy and Amita wants to sell. So you either burn the drugs for Sabal or stop Depleur burning them for Amita. I feel like there's some sort of message here that drugs are bad or something. After that, a happy or sad Amita sends you to protect some statues that Depleur is planning to destroy. You protect them, then either light some torches for Sabal or block off the path to the statues for Amita. You can see why I don't seem to like the binary choice system when they give us this kind of difference as a reward for a whole other playthrough. At this point, Nor realizes that you're ignoring her predicament, so she calls you and says that you need to kill Depleur because he's leaving the country. You then sneak into one of his parties, freeing his slaves for Sabal or photographing human rights violations for Amita as you go. Capturing Depleur comes off without a hitch, and you take him to the Golden Path, but before they lock him away for good, he reveals that Nor's family have been dead for a long time. Rather than deal with this piece of information immediately, you need to sort out another dispute between Sabal and Amita, this time over whether you destroy or capture the processing plant for the opium poppies that you captured or burned. If I'm honest, this one really shouldn't have been a choice, since a poppy processing plant is only useful if you want the drugs, and that is clearly something that you have already decided. Anyway, you blow the shit out of it for Sabal or capture it while tripping balls for Amita, then stop procrastinating and pay a visit to Nor. In the arena, you can either kill Nor because of the terrible things she's done, or tell her that her family is dead and let her kill herself because of the terrible things that have been done to her. I'd think of a quip, but that's just morbid. To lighten the tone, you decide to evict Reggie and Yogi from your house, but then you notice a frame for a missing Thanka painting that was a family heirloom. Reggie and Yogi send you to find its pieces, and this begins another subplot in which you relive the adventures of a man named Kalinag, who saved a mystical paradise called Shangri-La from demons with the help of a tiger and an elephant because fantasy. This storyline actually relates to the main one after a while, so remember those ridiculous names. Has everything up until now been just a little too foreign? Do you feel like you need an American patriot to enter the story and sort everything out? No? Well, too bad, because now you get contacted by a CIA agent called Willis, who makes you clear out an airport to protect him, and then makes you chase after a plane with nothing but a wingsuit because it apparently contains information on your father's death. After you miraculously obtain the files in the plane, you find out that they have been heavily censored and are essentially useless, and Willis uses them as further leverage to make you kill some of Yuma's lieutenants, Yuma being Pagan's second-in-command. He also tells you that he recruited your father for the CIA, but never really gives a reason. Willis does have some interesting pieces of information, however, and explains that Mohan tried to kill Ishwari when she fled the country. Ishwari was also the Tarun Matara, but that is not even worth mentioning. After some more killing for the CIA, Willis reveals that you've been killing CIA assets who were there because there was a plan to overthrow Pagan, but they have now decided that he is not a threat for some stupid reason. Willis then strands you on a mountain, presumably for the same stupid reason, and then you are transported to a prison that Yuma controls. You escape, but only after you discover that Yuma has also found out about Shangri-La and can bring demons into the real world. Even though you escaped, you are still stranded in the mountains, so naturally you see a Yeti before passing out and being rescued by Amita or Sabal, depending on who you sided with on your last choice mission. Now you can just relax and try to forget that Willis ever existed. Actually, you can't relax, because now you have to gain access to the north of Kyrat by destroying a gate made of blast-proof concrete using a chemical truck that you either steal from a fueling station for Sabal or steal from a moving convoy for Amita. Again, thank God for binary choice systems. With the north now accessible, you head to the nearest town with resistance members in it, but then Pagan kills the people who are housing you and you retaliate by killing him. Except it's not him, it's his body double, because that would be ridiculously anticlimactic. Pagan makes an announcement on TV to reassure the people of Kyrat that he is alive, but also to tell you where Yuma is so that the two of you can try to kill each other. You set off to kill Yuma, but she takes you into Shangri-La and reveals that she is becoming Kalinag. This is quite upsetting for you, so you respond by killing Kalinag in Shangri-La and consequently Yuma in real life. Before you accomplish this, however, Yuma shows you visions of how brutal your favourite Golden Path leader would be if they gained control of the country, which you can definitely believe because you're in a drug-induced spirit world fight with a woman who is also an extremely old man and her tiger. Back with the Golden Path, Badger informs you that Amita and Sabal are having another fight, this time over a place called Yelendu Temple, where Badger is supposed to become the Tarun Matara. Sabal wants to rescue the temple from Pagan and have the Tarun Matara ceremony, and Amita wants to destroy it so that the people of Karat can move beyond tradition. After you've done this mission, whoever's option you chose becomes the unequivocal leader of the Golden Path, so some thought may be put into this choice. After the temple has been dealt with, Pagan's army begins to bomb the town you originally came to in the north, and you must either shut down the artillery if you're with Amita, or if you pick Sabal, stop people from dying in the town by murdering enemy soldiers, ironically. At this point in the story, the binary choice thing finally pays off, and your favourite leader sends you to kill the other one. The only downside to this being that whether you kill them or not has no effect on the plot at all. The one you didn't pick just ends up dead or completely out of the picture, and either way they don't appear again in the rest of the game. This moment only seems to be here to make your favourite leader sound like Pagan, with Amita going so far as to almost quote him. After that test of morality, you can finally end this war once and for all, and the Golden Path begins their assault on Pagan's castle. Once you arrive at Pagan's home, you are given the choice of whether or not you want to kill him, and this choice actually does have some payoff. If you kill Pagan, you never find Lakshmana, but you do gain full closure for the country. Or you can let Pagan live, whereupon he shows you to Lakshmana and reveals to you that she was your stepsister and that your father killed her before he flies off in a helicopter and gives you the country. Admittedly, both endings have the same result, but I actually like both of them for what they represent to you and the character you have given Ajay. And that's the main part of the story of Far Cry 4, although it does get a little deeper if you read all of the notes, letters, and Mohan's journal. For now though, I should really shut the fuck up, because this video is way too long and I'm bored of the sound of my own voice. Also, I'm aware that I should have had subtitles on, but I wanted to be immersed in the game when I was playing it, so you're just gonna have to believe everything that I said without much proof. Hopefully I can find a shorter game to do next time, but I really have no idea what to do, so we'll see. Until then, subscribe for more and check out my other abridged videos. I promise you that they are all more coherent than this one. See you there.